So Thomas Mock posted this question online last night asking him what he called a noob JavaScript question for anyone who has the answer. He's working with Reactable and he's trying to write a JavaScript function inside a string in R that gets wrapped in this JS bit and then gets executed in the browser. And ran into a little bit of trouble. So I have the gist of it pulled up over here, and I also made a little example because I think this might be a good time to talk about how you can debug your JavaScript that you write in R and that gets embedded into HTML widgets and that kind of thing. And because it gets a little tricky. And not really noob question, this is totally reasonable to be like, how do you debug this? We're used to these really awesome tools in RStudio where you can look inside your environment and execute code inside of a REPL like the console and do all those kinds of things. But like when you're transitioning to writing JavaScript, it can be a little tricky to figure out how you can get that kind of development environment set up for yourself. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to show. So he kindly provided an example that I edited a little bit, and we're going to use the Reactable package, and then here create a narrow miles per gallon data set from the ggplot2 MPG data set. So this has manufacturer, year, and model, and basically what we're going to try to do is create a Reactable. I'm going to comment out all of this stuff just for a second so you can see what this would look like. Here's the Reactable table, and we've got manufacturer, year, and model. There's a lot of cars, and what we would really like to do is be able to group these by manufacturer. So I think if I just run these lines, this is kind of what we're expecting to see. Something like this where you can group by each year or by manufacturer and see and kind of have these subtables. But what we would like to do, what Thomas was trying to do, is have a year and model summary be printed inside of in this sort of cell right here that there's nothing there right now. And I wonder, Reactable, like let's search for Reactable help documentation. Is this in there anywhere? There's the group by character vectors. It's somewhere in the column definition. I think that the easiest way is to go to the online. Reactable has amazing documentation. There's a ton of demos here that you can use, and this big grouping and aggregation. So in here, somewhere if I scroll down, you see there are, yeah, interesting. So we have this sort of call def and aggregate and some formatting and something like this. But so what we want to do is we actually do this in JavaScript. And here they show, Greg Lynn has an example of using custom aggregating functions in JavaScript where you can use, basically you write a function based on the values and the rows. The values are going to be an array of all values in the current group. So jump back into our example that we're looking at. So there are 18 year model combinations that are Audi. Although some of these do have duplicates that, there are other columns that differentiate these, which we're going to ignore for now. But so there are 18 of these, and you can basically, so the values themselves are going to be in an array of all of the values in the group. So we would expect for the year column, if I look at the values in Audi 18, or in Audi in this row, you would see an array of 18, like 1999, 99, 2008, 2000, etc. So maybe we'll start there by just trying to see how we can kind of get into this, or maybe not. Actually, I think I'm just going to try to run this example and see where we can go. So we have, so Tom has worked out, here's an idea of a JavaScript function. It's a good start. It's there's pieces of this that will probably work, and maybe it won't, maybe it will. So if I run this, we have, I'm storing it as variables so I can swap them in and out pretty quickly. But let's say we have here, so this aggregate function, we're going to use basically this JavaScript. And when we run this, now we see nothing. Nothing happens. It's not working. Or is it working? It's really hard to tell. You don't really know, except you have this blank viewer pane, and that's where things get tricky. So from here, inside of, so RStudio, it turns out, is actually just a browser. You can just look inside of the browser. You can right click on this and click inspect element, and then all of a sudden this window popped up too big, but all of a sudden you're inside. It says RStudio Dev Tools, but this is basically the dev tools for a Chromium browser or a Chrome-based browser, right? And there's a lot going on here. So we'll ignore everything here, but if you click over to console, you can see I have some errors. And we're going to kind of focus on this one. It tells us here why rmax.slice is not a function. And that starts to give you a hint as to what might be going on, because this code here includes yrmax.slice. So maybe if you had written this code yourself, you probably at this point would recognize, oh wait, like I wrote that and it's probably wrong. So something's wrong there. Yeah. The problem with the RStudio DevTools though is that, we also have the rest of RStudio loaded here. So it can be kind of hard to figure out. So that you have like all of this stuff. This is all about RStudio, and it has nothing to do with your current example. The viewer pane is actually basically an iframe, and so there's this document inside of there. And this is, I find that using RStudio's dev tools, for something really quick can be fine, but generally it's quite painful. So instead, you click this little what is the tooltip that comes up here? It's not popping up for me. Shown in new window. So this opens up your example in a browser. So I use Firefox, and so this opens up the viewer pane, or whatever was in the viewer pane inside of Firefox. So now my example's here, still see nothing, but again I can right click and then click inspect element, and now I have open up DevTools. So DevTools in Chrome and Firefox, you can actually kind of control where it shows up in your browser. There's these three little dots up here, and I'm going to click on dock to the right. So now I have my web page, which should have the table that I want to see, and then DevTools is over here on the right. So the first thing is the inspector tab. This is going to show you the HTML that is inside your document, and you can kind of browse through this, and you see when I drop down HTML widget container, like here's where my reactable table should be, right? But it's not. There's nothing inside of this div, which means that it didn't render. And not rendering means that at some point probably something failed and broke down, and we already saw the error, which if I go to the console, you can see again here is our error. This time it's a little bit easier to is it easier if we're going to find out? Is it easier to figure out where this is? Okay, so here we actually have we jump to the source. So now this is moving over into the debugger pane. So in the debugger pane, you can actually see the code itself that you have loaded. And usually there's like an index.html in here. Let's see. I'm going to reload. Sometimes you have to reload in the debugger pane. Why? Where's my index? I mean, it's this. Here. Usually, why am I not seeing it? Okay, well, anyway, let's go in here to I'll click this again, and what you can do, so this opened up, so I went back to the error, found the error, clicked on this link, which shows you where it happened in the source code of your document that you're looking at, and when I clicked on that, it jumped right to here. And I'm missing a little bit of context, but this is the function that is attempting to be called. And so now I'm just going to click on here on the side, and this triggers a breakpoint, which means that when this function is executed the next time, I will the execution will be paused here, and then I can kind of explore what's going on. So in order to get it to be executed again, I have to reload the page. because apparently this function is only called, like this function breaks before the whole page is loaded, so there's no way to trigger it to run again unless I reload. So I'm going to click reload, and did that work? That didn't work either. So anyway, we do see the error here. So am I, why values? Nope. Okay. Hang on. We're going to find a way to do this. So we're going to do this the really old school manual way, which is we're going to actually manually include the debugger statement. So in JavaScript, there's a debugger statement. You just put debugger. You don't necessarily need the semicolon, but I'm going to put it just so that, because I'm going to put it. And it's very much like the browser statement in R. So whenever the JavaScript engine gets to this statement, it will pause execution as long as you have dev tools open. So I'm going to run this again. So now I have a new JavaScript function. Run this again. So I have a table that doesn't work. I don't have a table. Now I click show in new window, and still nothing, and nothing paused. So there I used a shortcut Command Option I. So it's the same as just clicking inspect element, basically and bringing up the console. And we still hit the error. And this is because when the page was loaded, I didn't have the DevTools pane open. But if I reload now, now I get I see paused on debugger statement. I have this little bouncy thing that says we're not totally done loading the page yet. And I'm dropped right into the debugger where this issue happened. So I'm in the debugger pane now. This is what I was hoping would happen before, where we stop execution right here. And already you're seeing, here's what you have for values. And if I hover over values, you can see this is the array as it currently is. And what else can I do? So I clicked inside of here, inside of the debugger pane, and now I'm going to press escape. And maybe I had to press it twice, but I pressed escape, and then that brought up the console, the JavaScript console. So now this is sort of like the R console in RStudio, but now inside of the browser. And also I happen to be paused inside of this function, so I can say values and hit enter, and now you can see, so this is the array of values that you're getting. So from here, you have a couple options. You can manually run all of this code and see what happens. For example, I can try math.min values and try to run that, and I see I get not a number, which is probably not what was expected. So that's maybe the first problem. And I can also click this step button, and step will move through the debugger, through the code that follows after the debugger statement. So I can kind of step through and see what's going on. So math, let's kind of skip ahead. So now I have why R min has been defined, but it's a nan, or not a number. And here why R max hasn't been executed yet, so it's undefined. But if I step one more time, now I have why R max is also not a number. And at this point, I now have enough to kind of get into this yr max.slice -2, not a function. So the first thing is, at this point, we probably weren't expecting yr max to be not a number. We were expecting it to be a number. And then also we're expecting it to have a method. So a method, so anything in JavaScript you have, so this is an object, or variable, but methods are dot, then the name of the method. So dot slice is supposed to be a method, and it's supposed to work like this. So if I had 2008 dot slice, so I could say -1, and I get just 8, -2, I get 0, 8, -3. So you can see the minus part means move from the end, from the right side, back a number of steps. So -2, the idea here is to just show the last 2 digits. But if you're watching this, you're probably like, wait a second, so what is this? What is this part here? Is this a string or a number? And yes, it's a string here because strings have the slice method. On the other hand, if I tried to put 2008 dot slice -2, I get some stuff. I get this. Identifier starts me after numeric and literal. You can try doing something like, say, let x equal 2008. Maybe the fact that you haven't stored it in a variable is going to be the problem. So I say x dot slice -2, and I get here we go again, x dot slice, not a function. And the problem here is that the slice method is defined on strings, but it's not defined on numbers, right? So let me switch back to RStudio. So I have an add-in that I've written for RStudio in the JS for Shiny package called Search MDN. It searches the MDN web docs, which is the Mozilla Developers Network web docs. These are amazing, and if you ever want to look up a method name, anything with JavaScript, CSS, or HTML, you're one very quick add-in away from saying .slice, what is this .slice? And you've now searched the MDN web docs, and you can kind of like look through here, and let's just go. So we see there's an array prototype. So this means there's an array. There's a slice method for arrays. There's a slice method for typed arrays. There's a lot of things. Maybe if I come back here and I say I search again and say string dot slice. I don't know. This might get us where we want to go. So here, string dot prototype slice. And here's the whole documentation about how slice is expected to work. So there are always some examples that you can actually run right here in your in the browser, and then there's syntax, definitions, and more documentation. So you always have that. So with the JS for Shiny package, you kind of have that one step away. The other thing is you can actually just select some code that you don't totally recognize, like maybe math.min, and click and search MDN web docs, and now directly pull up the math.min. So this is helpful, definitely, and you can see, oh, here we go. We see if one or more of the parameters cannot be converted into a number, nan is returned. And also we see, if we kind of look up here, like how is this supposed to work? You're supposed to give like a list of numbers. Here's an example with an array. So you can't actually pass an array of numbers directly to math.min. So you need this dot stuff first. And the dot, this is called the spread operator, but it basically unpacks the array into, so this is like an array 2, 3, 1, and it unpacks the array into something that looks more like this. So it would be like this first example, like 2, 3, 1. So it's kind of like taking a list or an array, in this case an array, and kind of like turning it into something that we would recognize in R as like the dot operator. So it's like take an array and make it into dots, kind of. I don't know. That's how I think about it, at least. Okay, so we've solved a mystery, more or less. We can kind of come back to our paused execution over here, and I think at this point we have a better idea about how maybe to apply math.min. So I'm going to click this trash can up here, clear my console. So again, I have values, and the idea is to get the minimum value of this array. So math.min values currently gives me nan. That's not right. Like I want this to look like 1999, comma 1999, comma 2008, 1999, etc., right? And so basically I can get to that point by using the spread operator. So spread out values, take the array values, spread it out, and when you run this, your min should be 1999. Okay, so I'm actually just do this right here in the browser. So wirmin equals math.min, again spreading out values. Cool, and now I have yrmin being 1999. Similarly, yrmax is going to be equal to math.max, spread out values again, And now I have YR max. Okay, this brings us to the last bit, which is the idea here is to basically take YR min and YR max and turn them into an array, back into an array. YR min, comma YR max. And if we ignore the slice part for just a second, the idea is that arrays have a join method. So you can say join, and this is a lot like paste in R. So join, we're going to join them together. The default is to just comma separate them, but what we would like here is for there to be an actual dash between them. So maybe actually dash space dash. And but the idea here was to actually say 1999-08, right? So to do that, we need to lop off that first 20 from 2008. So that's where the slice comes in. So if I try this, slice -2, we're back to our problem with slice not being a function. So anything in JavaScript basically can be turned into a string. So this is kind of nice. I can take YR max and say toString. So there's a toString method, and basically everything in JavaScript has this method. And if I run that method now, I have a string, which is awesome because a string now has the slice operator, or slice method, sorry, and I can get where I want to go. So YR max.toString gives me a string, and now I have slice is in there, and you can see it's kind of telling me, okay, yeah, you're good, there's a slice, you're good, and then -2, and I'm down to 2008. So if you're wondering now, like, how do you know what all these methods are? One of them was, to go to MDN and say, for example, string.prototype, or maybe even just search for string. But if you click on one of these, you can, all of the methods of a data type in JavaScript are going to be listed on the left under like the methods. So you can see these are all of the methods that a string has. Pretty cool. There's a lot of them. And some of them have this little thumbs down. Don't use those. Like, it's deprecated. It probably won't work. Maybe it will, but don't count on it. So let's go back. The other thing that you can do too is you can save this to. I wonder so can I do tab complete? So tab completion isn't working here if I put dot and press tab. But if I save this, I'll just call it X. Is X okay? We'll call it X. So I have X, and I think at this point, now that it's in a variable and it's like the next method, the REPL, the console here in the browser is going to show me here are all of the methods that you can use. And you can kind of just look through these. You don't really get a whole lot of information about what they do, but it can be helpful to kind of just jog your memory. And if you're like, oh, I think it was called something, slice, that's what it was, slice, and then and you're good to go. Okay, so let's put this all together. I'm going to take YR min and YR max. They're currently an array, and I want to join them together, separated with the dash. But I want only the last 2 digits of the year for YR max, right? So let's take dot toString, turn that into a string, slice it, the last 2, and there's the answer that we're looking for. So I can take this back to RStudio. Let's figure out, there's a lot of stuff in here. Let's just kind of get the basics of what I needed to do. So one last time, I'll write it in here in this string inside of this JS wrapper, inside of R, several layers deep. And so the first one was values needed to be spread out for math.min and math.max to work, and YR max needs to be a string instead of a number. And let's run this, and running it again, I'll come down here, run this one, and it works. Like, yeah, it works. This is awesome. So now you're good to go. Yeah. if this reactable, okay, I'm going to show you the other way because one of the things that threw me at the very beginning was that I didn't actually have a document. Like normally you have an HTML document that you can look through. So I'm going to kind of I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to make a new R Markdown document, and we're not even going to bother looking at it. Just, let's see, delete all this stuff. And it's just going to be an HTML document, and let's delete everything, make a new R chunk. Here's my code. We're good to go. Except this time I'm going to use this JS aggregate too. So this first one, I fixed this, it now works. But here is another attempt. Maybe this one will work, and we're not quite sure. So I'm going to make this, we're going to use the second one because this is the other one that didn't work. And I'll save this, and example reactable.rmd, and knit it, and it'll knit fine, and it'll load up some code for us. But you can see there's no table. So this is our output. We are expecting there to be a table here, and there's no table. There's no table. Oh no. Okay, so click Show in New Window. We're going to skip using the RStudio Dev Tools, and right-click anywhere on the page. Does not really matter. Click Inspect Element, and you can see we have ourselves here. So here's our problem. Hi.slice is not a function. Hi.slice is not a function. So yeah, this is, again, seems like, wait, this seems like a familiar problem, right? We can kind of see, let's go. So this is like all of the HTML for what we see so far. But again, there's no table here where we expect it to be. So clicking on debugger, the drawer is hidden. I'm bringing out the drawer, and inside of here, I'm looking for, let's see, I'm looking for my, there. I'm looking for the page itself. So we're looking at example reactable.html, right? And I found it here, example reactable.html, and here is like a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. There's this is okay. That's too much stuff. I'm just gonna find here this line, and oh, we're back. We're back at where we were before. So I clicked this, and it brought us back to something that we recognize. This time, I think though, if I click the breakpoint here and try to run this again, the breakpoint didn't work. So that might just have to do with how the JavaScript is being loaded by Reactable. So we're kind of stuck with that, and I think at this point, turns out the best way to get in here is to just sort of throw in a debugger, go old school manual, knit this so that it's in there, come back to my browser window. I have DevTools open. I will reload the page, and now we're paused. Now we're right back where we were before. So values, let's see, values looks like what we thought it was, and let's step through this. So we'll see low, and go one more. So we have low being 1999. We have high being 1999 because we took the 0th, so the first really item from values became that. And I think so the idea with this for loop here is to just iterate over the values in this, the individual values in the value array. And basically, if you find a number, like as you go through, if you find a number that's lower than the current low, then make the new value that you found the new low. And if you find a number that's higher than the current high, make that value the new high, right? So if you kind of just skip through this, you can see how that happens. So the current value here is 99. We'll do one more loop. So current value is 2008. 2008 is going to be higher than 1999. So our high is going to get updated from 1999 to 2008, and that happens. Now I have a high of 2008, low of 1999, and at some point, like you make it through the whole list of values, and hang on. So there's quite a bit to get through. I think that didn't work. All right, so where are we? We're gonna reload. So sometimes if you go too far, so I went too far, so we're gonna stop and reload, and we're back to where we want to be. But anyway, the idea what ends up happening is the same thing. So you end up with, I think I accidentally clicked the play button. So you end up, oh, see, it moved, it jumped on me. I clicked next and it moved over and I clicked play. So, okay, so here we go. We have low, we have high, we have enough information to kind of come to this step. If I point that here, we still end up with this high.slice. It's not a function, and I bet if we just put a to string here, dot slice 1990, yeah, it'll work. So I can take this, back to our studio. I'll take out the debugger, to string, throw that here where it should be, and then just reknit everything, and you're good to go. So here's the actual table. So another, like, while we're here, something else kind of fun is so this whole like re-knitting every time you have to make a change while you're trying to do like HTML debugging. There are a couple of options for this. So you can actually use from the Sharingan package. There's a function called the infinite moon reader, and this works by basically every time you make a change and save it. So here's our table, and save it. It will reknit the document and then output it. So I can actually do something like echo equals false. Here's a table. Oh wait, no, there's no table. It's because it's still broken, right? There are a couple of kind of downsides, little things that I kind of run into every once in a while when using this. To turn it off, the easiest way is just to restart your R session. So now I'm not reloading, and I'm going to clear this so that it doesn't confuse us. But inside the JS for Shiny package, I also use the same idea, but I have something that works slightly differently, JS for Shiny, and I'll do live preview. And live preview is designed to work with a directory, so it will render our Markdown HTML kind of documents, Markdown documents inside of a directory, and then update your output for whatever directory. Whereas Infinite Moon Reader will watch just the current open document, right? So there's that part of it, and also there's another add-in for stopping, and it's kind of easier to pick where it goes. It's also a little bit less chatty. You don't see all of the rendering output as our Markdown re-renders your document. So I can add in a little bit of text, save it, and it'll be updated over here. So as you kind of go through and fix your issues, our Markdown document gets re-rendered, and you can do fun things, I guess. You can work. So, okay, that was exciting. And thanks to Tom for the original problem, and for posting about it on Twitter and sharing the example. And everybody follow him. He's got some great content and leads the Tidy Tuesday project, which is a lot of fun. So hopefully this was helpful, and thanks for watching.